What is that noise? Anyway. Hi YouTube, today I'm here with NETGEAR's Nighthawk RAX120, a dual channel Wi-Fi 6 AX router capable of up to 6,000 megabits per second. Oh, God, really? Corny Star Wars jokes aside, opening the box and we can see, well, another box. I'm pleased to say that plastic use is kept to a minimum, with moulded cardboard being used to provide shipping protection, which is great. And what plastics they do give you can be reused, so please do keep it inside the box and out of the landfill. Inside the second box we find the RX120 router itself, a large power adapter rated at 60 watts with a UK and EU plug, an assortment of paperwork and a 1 meter Cat5e flat black Ethernet cable. The router itself is an all black affair and certainly has a striking, unique appearance. I made the Star Wars pun earlier referring to its resemblance to Kylo Ren's ship in a galaxy long ago and far, far away, though more likely referring to its Nighthawk namesake, the American F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter. Nothing else is quite like it, and it gets top marks for its unique design and appearance, especially once the wings, or more specifically the antennas, are in the upright position, but can collapse during operation to make the router less bulky. Looking top down, we have the indicator bar, which has LED indicators to display items like power, internet connection, and connected devices like USB and Ethernet ports, but more on that shortly. Moving down, we can see some ventilation, and under that we can make out a 60mm fan which kicks in automatically during high workload tasks. Being very quiet during our operation, I've only heard it kick in a handful of times in almost 6 weeks of testing, but to actually hear it in the room would need to be near silent anyway. Finally, in the lower section we have 2 more buttons. The top one is the WPS or Wi-Fi protected setup toggle button to connect Wi-Fi devices more easily. Below that is the Wi-Fi on-off toggle button. Pretty self-explanatory. Below at the bottom left is the only visible branding with the Nighthawk logo engraved into the plastic. The front and sides are clear of any ports in keeping with the stealth aesthetic, so moving to the business end, the rear, we're greeted with, from left to right, the LED on-off switch, 4 gigabit Ethernet ports, with ports 1 and 2 being aggregated, a gigabit WAN port, a multi-gig Ethernet port capable of 1, 2.5 and 5 gigabit Ethernet, a recessed reset button, 2 USB 3 ports for printers and USB hard drives, a power button, and finally the power cable connector. Let's talk specifications. Dimensions are 310 by 190 by 45mm, and it weighs in at 1,364 grams. It sits somewhere between the TP-Link AX11000 and the AX50 I've reviewed recently on the channel. The Nighthawk RAX120 is a dual band router, a single 2.4 GHz band capable of 1,148 megabits a second on the 40 MHz channel. The 5 GHz band is capable of 4,803 at 160 MHz bandwidth. The higher these frequencies operate, the faster the connection. 8x8 MU MIMO allows simultaneous streaming to multiple devices, in this case up to 4 2x2 devices, such as the Intel AX200 Wi-Fi 6 and iPhone 11 used in the testing for this review. 2.4 and 5 GHz channel OFDMA, which allows one transmission to deliver data to multiple devices at once. The brains of the outfit is a 2.2 GHz quad-core Qualcomm IPQ 8087 CPU, 512 megabytes of RAM, and 1 gig of flash memory. Now seems like a good time to mention some of the key features. Let's start with security. NETGEAR bundle the Nighthawk RAX120 with the 30-day trial of NETGEAR Armor, which is provided by Bitdefender. Once this trial is used up, a subscription is required to continue use. At £59.99, it's quite a chunk of change. The dual USB 3.0 ports included allow for a printer and hard drive to be shared simultaneously, or one or both of each. The transfer rates of attached storage here are excellent, but I'm going to brush over it for now and come back in the testing shortly. Continuing on, the Ready Share options on offer are excellent. There's 3 options that I want to talk about. The first being Ready Share Basic. This offers a basic network sharing interface, allowing the attached storage drive to act as a network attached storage device, with some more advanced settings like internet access via HTTPS and FTP. A media server can also be found here that offers typical network detection options. ReadyCloud gives you remote access over the internet, however you must have a ReadyCloud account. The router makes this very easy to create a ReadyCloud account in the user interface, however. ReadyShare Vault lets you back up files from Windows PCs. This works using the ReadyShare software NETGEAR provides via a download. The link is again provided in the user interface. Finally, the router can be configured to work in 3 modes: router mode, AP mode, and bridge mode. It's great to see these options. It's a shame that there is no real mesh implementation here, but it would impact other product lines, so I do understand why this isn't included. As I brushed over the user interface, let's see what's on offer. Right, so here we are. We've opened up the URL. It's 192.168.1.1, and we are greeted with a pretty simple user interface. It has the Nighthawk branding, and it's got the contrasting kind of white and grey black colours, which is kind of typical with what you get with the Nighthawk routers. Let's take a look here, and we're on the basic menu. We're going to kind of just glance over the basic stuff and move straight to the advanced because it's all covered in the basic stuff anyway. But when you open up the URL, like I said, you're greeted with these 6 boxes, and these are the 6 things that you would typically use the most. So it lets you know your status of connection to the internet, and that would be your modem, whether you have a cable modem or an A or a VDSL modem. And it just lets you know that you have a good connection to the internet. You have some wireless settings with your passwords. You have your attached devices. It says the number of devices, and then whether you've got quality of service on or off. You've got your ReadyShare information, and you have your guest network as well. And that tells you at the moment it's not enabled because I'm just not using it. But here is where you would turn it on if you like. There's also the NETGEAR Armor settings here, and that's obviously again provided by Bitdefender, and here is where you just go in and configure all that good stuff. So if you open up the advanced menu, just wait for a second for it to load, and here we already have some more information. So there's a few little bits of information about the router itself. There's a reboot button if you just want to reboot it. You can press that and it will do it for you. That's quite nice. You have some information about the internet port, and there's the IP information, all that stuff from the modem. Here you've got the show statistics and connection status buttons as well, and again that just loads a little window and lets you know some information. You've got your wireless settings here. That includes like the names, the regions, channels, the mode it's in, and all that good stuff as well. And you have the exact same for the 5 GHz channel. And again, there's obviously the guest network stuff. So when you set that up, there's a whole bunch of information there too. Click on the setup wizard. Again, this is for you to reconfigure a connection to the internet. So we're just going to glance over that. If you click the Wi-Fi protected setup here, it just gives you the ability to connect to wireless devices using the push button or a PIN number. It's quite nice. If we open up the first of the menu tabs, we have the setup tab. The first one, if you click the internet, this is where you can configure your connection to the internet or the cable modem once again. Here we have the wireless setup, and here is where you configure all your wireless information. You can enable AX modes, OFDMAs in the 2.4 and the 5 GHz bands. That's actually pretty nice. I've enabled Smart Connect, and being honest, I recommend you guys do the same. Of course, there's some more information about the wireless networks, about enabling the SSIDs, the coexistence for the 20 and 40 megahertz. That's on the 2.4 gigahertz bands. You have all the information there, and then going down for the 5 gigahertz options, we have exactly the same again. So obviously, we have the modes. You can have up to 160 megahertz, which is very nice again. There's obviously your passwords. And the final thing that's worth mentioning is the security options. So you have WPA2 and WPA3 is available on this, and you can also have TKIP and AES protection as well. So having WPA3 is very nice. Moving on to the guest network, here's where you can enable and disable it, and of course you can change the SSID or just the network name as well. That's the same for both channels. Here you have the WAN setup. It gives you some information about setting up the WAN. The MTU size is a nice thing to have because for me it's 1440 instead of 1500. I use 4G internet. The LAN setup again, just some information about the setting up your local area network on the router itself. You can use the router as a DHCP server, which is what I do. QoS setup here. Give it a second. Here we go. So we have the it has enables upstream QoS. So for me, if I was to enable that, I know I have a 10 megabit upload on my 4G internet. So I'd enable that. Of course, you can do a speed test as well to find out what you have, and then obviously you can set up some QoS rules and things like that as well. The next tab is WMM, which is Wi-Fi multimedia, and that just enhances packets on the LAN as well. So that's a nice thing to have too. And then finally, the device name if you want to change it to something else as well. Moving on to the ReadyShare tab here, we have the basic settings. Which is basically where you just plug in a USB hard drive of choice. You can either be a hard drive or an SSD, doesn't matter. And then it just gives you the link that you copy and to make a share on a Windows PC. Pretty simple, and it works very well. I do have some testing, some information that's going to be slightly later on in the review, so stay tuned for that. You have the advanced settings. And obviously you can change the name of the network and the device. You can and how you can connect to it as well. So you can also connect to it over the internet via HTTP and FTP as well, which is really good. Then obviously you can create network folders and all that good stuff as well. If you want to safely remove the USB device, you just click that. With the USB devices, you can also plug in printers, like network printers that use USB as well. So that's pretty cool. Final thing is media server. You can enable media server, so if you add just media files like videos, movies, whatever, it acts as a media server as well that works over the network too, so that's very nice. Moving on to Ready Cloud. This is where NETGEAR give you the option to create an account, and then you can connect to the Ready Cloud using Windows software anywhere or over the internet, so that's another fantastic feature. Ready Share Vault is slightly different, and what it does is it lets you make backups on your Windows PCs, and this is a Windows only thing as far as I'm aware. But basically they have some PC software that you download from this link, and then you just basically set it up, and it lets you just make Windows backups onto a hard drive that's attached to the router here, so that's very nice. Security tab. It's a fairly standard affair here, guys. But we have access control. So firstly, you'd have to turn it on, and then it basically allows you to add or block certain devices from having connection to the internet. You can block websites and certain keywords as well. You can do it always, per schedule, and or never. You can block services as well, so that's another neat feature. You have the schedule, and that's where it blocks certain devices and for how long. And then of course you can set up email notifications, so if something happens, like somebody tries to access something that you've blocked or certain restrictions, then you'll get an email as well. That's a very nice feature. Moving on to administration, we have a little bit more information about the status of the router itself. So again, that's just the window that we had at the start. You've got all the logs here. Attached devices is a list of all the devices that are attached. That's via the Ethernet ports or the wireless. If you want to back up your settings, here's where you do that. You can also revert to default factory settings as well. Here's where you can change your password that you set up when you did the initial setup. So you can also change your security questions. That's another part of the setup as well. It's fantastic. So do that there. NTP settings. So here is where it gets the time for the router from the internet rather than you setting it yourself. It's very smart. If you want to do a firmware update, you can check and have it use the internet to do a search. Or if you download a firmware that you want to upload, here's where you do that as well. You can tell it to auto update the firmware or not as well. So if you don't want it to do it, you just disable that, click apply, job done. Finally, in the advanced settings menu, we have some more wireless setting stuff. To be honest, guys, if you don't really know what you're doing here, I would just kind of leave it. It's like set to like just work perfectly anyway, so that's brilliant. Another key noteworthy thing here is that there's 3 options for modes with this particular router. So you can use it as a router, which is obviously what I'm doing. You can use it as an access point, so that's AP mode. So you would just connect that to another router. So you can, it's just a fancy access point. Or you can use it as bridge mode as well. So if you have 2 of these and you have one as an access point or one as a router, you can use another one as a bridge. Brilliant, actually, it's very good. Port forwarding, port triggering is a standard affair, but here's where you configure that. Dynamic DNS is another one. NETGEAR also are their own service provider here as well, so you can use them. That's great. We have a VPN service, so you can open the configuration packages for Windows, Mac OS X, and for smartphones as well. Here's where you configure all that good stuff. Static routes, if you have any of those and you want to set them up or edit and delete them, here's where you do that. Remote management, you can enable that, and of course this is where you just do all that good stuff. USB settings, enable any USB device connected to the USB port, and then you can have some approved devices and things like that. UPnP, or Universal Plug and Play, here's where there's all that information. And then IPv6 is the final one, or there's a few more actually. But IPv6 is the next one. If you have that as an internet connection type, here is where you configure that as well. So it's becoming much more popular now, but yeah, this is where it is. Traffic meter, you can basically have a traffic counter on the router, and this is where you turn that on and off. Here's the VLAN and the bridge settings. If you want to enable that, then this is where you do it, and then you decide what ports you want to use for all that good stuff. Here we have the LED control settings. You can enable and disable all the LEDs, I believe, except it's the power button. So if you turn them all off, yeah, there you go, except the power LED. They'll turn all of them off all the time, except for the power LED. We have the Ethernet port aggregation. So you can aggregate ports 1 and 2, and you can do that using LACP or static lag, whatever you prefer out of those two. So again, standard affair, it's just 2 ports, but it's nice to see, it's nice to have, it's a nice feature. And of course, you just enable or disable that here. Finally, the VPN client is where you enable that. So I believe Pure VPN is the only provider that NETGEAR have a partnership with here. Basically, you click this button and it will send you to their website where you buy a license, and then you configure it and you do all the setup here as well. So on to testing. With up to 6,000 megabytes per second on the table, remember that this is total available throughput and at best marketing material, so these figures are kind of unobtainable in a single connection. Considering Wi-Fi 6 cards and mobile devices only have 2.2 radios, which are the best you can get at the moment, in my case I'm using a Fenvi PCIe 1X card, which uses the Intel AX200 chipset, and an iPhone 11 to do my testing. With the Nighthawk RAX120 being a 4x4 router, that means you could, in theory, have up to 4 2x2 devices connected at full speed simultaneously. Now, as the LAN ports on the Nighthawk RAX120 and my PC are gigabit, we are limited to a gigabit connection. The multi-gig LAN port is a good option for someone with a newer motherboard that supports up to a 5 gigabit Ethernet connection. Unfortunately, I don't have one to test, so I connected my PC using gigabit Ethernet and connected a share to the Wi-Fi 6 card that I put in my file server to test alongside gigabit Ethernet. A 2.5 gigabyte ISO was used as the test file. The mean of 3 test runs were collected, and I decided on 2 ranges. One very close at 3 foot and the other 40 foot away from the router. I decided on these ranges to give a suitable range that a standard new build UK house is, so not only was the second test 40 feet away, but it was also on a different floor and through 2 separate walls. The mean of the 3 foot range tests maxed out the gigabit Ethernet connection with 113 megabits per second transfer rate, which is exactly what I get when I transfer files over a direct Ethernet connection. At 40 foot away, the results are a very impressive 108 megabits per second transfer rate, a very strong score here for a long range test. The Smart Connect feature has worked its magic here, moving the bands to available channels. Showing that the Nighthawk RAX120 has serious power under the hood, it also shows that the gigabit connection is the biggest bottleneck here. Of course, enabling link aggregation would be a benefit here, as well as utilising the multi-gigabit Ethernet port for extra throughput. Onto NAS or USB hard drive performance. Here I connected a USB 3 caddy with a 480GB SSD to do some transfers via the gigabit Ethernet connection. Again, the mean of 3 tests were used, and I'm pleased to report an amazing 109 megabits a second write and 113 read. A top result showing off the power of the quad-core CPU used once again, showing that the gigabit Ethernet connection is once again the bottleneck. Roundup time. The NETGEAR Nighthawk RAX120 is a feature-rich and performance-orientated router. There's no doubt about it. With a powerful quad-core CPU, strong and stable Wi-Fi 6 features like MU-MIMO and OFDMA on both channels, and 12 Wi-Fi streams on offer. 4 for the 2.4 GHz channel and 8 for the 5 GHz channel, enabling up to 4 2x2 devices to be connected concurrently. A 160 MHz HT connection isn't off the table, though the router will need to be manually configured to do so, with the correct use of DFS channel technology pushing users to vacant lanes to keep speeds high. However, Smart Connect will typically connect all Wi-Fi 6 devices, even those capable of 160 MHz at 80 MHz. I was impressed when I concluded that the Nighthawk RAX120 could easily provide throughput and range for a high demand household, especially with content consumption with the likes of Netflix and others becoming a boom in recent years. I tested with 3 iPhone 11s, my VR PC with Wi-Fi 6, and my main PC connected via Ethernet, and all played back media with no issues at all. QoS was a feature that initially confused me, as the only options for it were outgoing traffic instead of incoming traffic, but concluded that it's just as important to manage the flow of traffic leaving the router as it is coming in, and it's a neat feature, especially if you're a streamer or content creator. NETGEAR Armor is another feature that needs to be mentioned. I get that it's a premium option, but competitors are offering a package included with the router for the life of the router. Then again, once the 30-day trial is finished, there's no obligation to renew. That being said, paying for the product also gets you unlimited device protection, so it's not just a router package. This makes it a much more compelling option for anyone looking for an all-in-one device and router protection package for their household. Again, at $59.99 GBP, $69.99 per year. It's not a cheap package, but again, it does provide router and device protection, which includes smartphones, laptops, PCs, and Mac computers. Let me know in the comments below if this type of package is something you like the sound of or not. Finally, the mobile app is available on Apple and Android devices and is a great addition for making basic changes. This can also be done remotely, which is a great addition. Here you can also add or remove the aforementioned NETGEAR Armor services. In summary, the Nighthawk RAX120 is powered by a 2.2 GHz quad-core processor, has 512 MB of RAM and 1 GB of flash memory. It's a 12-stream dual-band router with 4 streams on the 2.4 GHz band and 8 streams on the 5 GHz band that can reach a maximum theoretical speeds of up to 1.2 gigabits per second on the 2.4 GHz band and up to 4.8 gigabits per second on the 5 GHz band. At the time of this review, the Nighthawk RAX120 is available between £329 and £389 in the UK, making this a substantial outlay. What you get is a strong, feature-rich and high-performance product in return, and I'm pleased to award NETGEAR's Nighthawk RAX120 Players Gold Award. A very big thanks to NETGEAR for sending the Nighthawk RAX120 in for review. Well, that's finally it from me, guys. Once again, I've been Dave from Player TV. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, you know what to do. Consider subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now.